Okay, I'm on Nicona Lake. A friend of mine has lent us their cabin, and it's about 10:19 p.m. So that's why it looks so dark behind me. Actually, using my computer screen to brighten it up so that you can see me. I'm sitting on the dock actually, and the dock is moving, but I feel like I am moving. It's moving me more than it should. I wanted to put this recording together because it's one of the times when I'm really struggling. I have struggled with daily suicidal thoughts since before I can remember, and I promised myself that I would share. Not only is it therapeutic, but I think my hope is, not I think, but my hope is that I can shed some light on this really, really dark feeling. So I guess kind of ironic that it's 10:30 at night and it's completely pitch black around me. You might be able to hear the water in the background, but I may fall asleep on this video, and if I do, I'll cut it after I fall asleep. So whenever I wake back up, exactly 27 days ago, I was subjected to suicide to an individual close to me for the second time in my lifetime. My nephew, who my wife and I helped raise his senior year of high school, and I've looked after him quite a bit since he was about 12. His family moved back to close to us, and I could see the struggles in him because I knew what they looked like. I could see in him what I had felt for years and years. The mental and emotional struggle of abuse. I won't go into my whole story tonight, but my mental state can deteriorate very quickly, and I have some safeguards in place. One of those is to shut my body down. If I can get my body to shut down before I deteriorate too low, then that's helpful. The key is in catching myself before I get that low. That's a difficult thing to do. Incredibly difficult. So this evening, about an hour ago, maybe probably an hour and a half, I started to feel my mental state deteriorate a little bit. And it's slow at first, just little things, like feeling like, what's the point? Or there's no hope in this life. I would say those are small things that lead to greater things. One of the things that I've always said, because people ask me what's prevented me from committing suicide, it's not that something prevents me, It's that I work as hard as I can not to allow something to push me over the edge. And I guess you could say over the last 10 years, I've come to value life more. Never did before. July of 2017 was the first time in my entire life that I can recall going an entire month without a single suicidal thought. And I purchased myself, let me see if I can find it, a Alcoholics Anonymous 1 month chip, which I know it's not quite the same, but for me, it was a huge milestone. Let's see if I can show this. So, obviously it's backwards, but I had purchased that for myself as a reminder that I can do it. I don't make this video to ever say that it could never happen to me, because it definitely could. I work hard to prevent myself from getting that low. I've learned some of my triggers that push me there, and lately through work in therapy and with a psychiatrist, I've come up with something that I can do to shut my body down. And that's what I've done tonight. I took some medication in order to shut down about an hour ago, and if I'm up walking around, it won't shut me down completely. But if I'm laying down, if I go lay down, I'll fall asleep pretty quick. But one of the things I wanted to do was begin to record, and being in the state that I am now, I wanted to record it. And the first suicide in my life was my dad. It was 2016, and he was an extremely abusive man. And the motto in my family was life sucks and then you die. And as a kid growing up, life sucked big time. And so I thought, why wait? I'd rather just die now. Since then, in 2011, I married my wife, and we've worked together on this. I didn't know what the word unconditional love meant until meeting her parents and her. We're now year 10, about to hit our 10th anniversary, and we just had our first child. And some people might think, well, isn't that enough? Thinking about them, how could you commit suicide? And the answer is, when your mind deteriorates past a certain point, those things mean a whole lot of shit. And so they're here, but the overall suicidal thoughts overpower them past a certain point. And that's one of the things I'm watchful for. I love them both so much, but oftentimes I get these thoughts that they'd be better off without me, without dealing with the stuff that I bring. And so that's a difficult frame of mind to be in. And I know there's lots of people out there who've felt the same way and been down the same road. I have had a couple of attempts, and they would be what I would call a weak attempt. And maybe I can go more into detail another time. But the goal is to never get to the point where there's a full-on serious attempt on my life. I can't, but again, I can't sit here and say that would never happen to me. Someone would think, the pain and heartache that I feel, and it's a little trippy on this dock because it moves, and every once in a while I feel like somebody's walking on the dock next to me. Maybe it's my nephew, I don't know. But my nephew's dad, my brother, he and I are about 13, 14 years apart. And we were talking about it, and he was telling his therapist, I'd like to think that the pain that I feel from my son committing suicide would mean that I would never do the same to subject my family to it. But the reality of it is, you don't remember that when you begin to go down that exit of suicide. And that's a very, very difficult thing for so many people to realize. So many people ask, why didn't you just call me? Or didn't they think about their family or their kids or whomever? But the reality of it is, when you get past a certain point, I'd say there's certain levels, this being the lowest, and then they get progressively more and more down that path. And the further you get down that path, the more those things get pushed out of your mind. And so right now, the way that I feel is, I miss my nephew a ton. I wouldn't say I miss my dad. I miss his intelligence. He's an incredibly intelligent man. I miss his teaching ability. But I do not miss him at this moment of my life. Those things are fairly fluid and they change. But at this very moment, I don't. What pains me the most about my nephew is going through his timeline. He and I talked about mental health and suicide a lot because we could relate to each other on it. We had both felt those thoughts deeply consume us. And so what I know that to get to that point of an attempt, you might be sitting in pain for a little bit. It's, in my experience, not often a snap decision, and there can be some immense amount of planning involved. I know my brother, he carries with him a suicidal plan. And it's not a just in case plan. It's that he got so low at one point that he created this plan. And once it's there, it's there. you're not going to forget about it. And it's difficult because every time you get to that low point, I guess my scale really goes like this, lower, 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 instead of further up down the suicidal path. But once you get to be feeling those feelings, those suicidal feelings, that plan comes back to mind. Your brain recalls it in an instant, and it's tough. It really is. I may end up falling asleep here on the dock. If I don't, I will more than likely trip and fall on the way back to the house. It's about 300-400 feet away, and the reason is because I've taken the medication that I've put together with my therapist and psychiatrist in order to shut me down, and so my body's going to begin to do that and go through that process. Right now, it's my wife, myself, and our Dottie, our Dottie. Try to combine Addison and daughter. Our Addie, Addison here. Addison she just hit 6 months yesterday. Now it's exciting. It's exciting to see her learn new things, but none of that matters when you get to a certain point. And that's what I want to convey. I'm fighting that, but I needed to record in this state to be able to express the immense amount of push that I'm feeling in the moment. I'm able to articulate it even in the moments when I don't feel this way. But I'm hopeful that doing a recording will help also bring me back up. I want to say my first attempt was when I was about 8 or 9. I didn't want to be here anymore. I didn't have any control over where I was living or the abuse that I was enduring. And that part of that abuse was you weren't allowed to ask for your needs. So, in other words, asking for help. You're not allowed to do that. And I see it in all my siblings. I'm one of 11. I'm number 8. And I ask myself all the time how two individuals, my dad was physically abusive and somewhat emotionally abusive. My mom was extremely emotionally abusive. And my mom's still alive. I still talk to her from time to time. And she's gone through a lot in her life. But my relationship with her is semi-distanced in order to protect myself. I didn't understand what a boundary was. I didn't even know what that word meant until a couple years into therapy. I'm completing year 9 in daily therapy. And so, not daily, I'm sorry, weekly. That's a lot of therapy, daily therapy. Weekly therapy. See, the medication is beginning to take hold, which is what I need. But I want to share that these things happen. It's not about a matter of calling someone all the time. I'm on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the lowest, and 1 being you're doing great. I would say I'm about a 6 or a 7. And if I go beyond that, there's no amount of recording, there's no amount of calling, nothing that can stop it. And the most recent attempt was a year ago when I overdosed on medications. And I didn't care what it did to me. We were not pregnant at that time. We had been trying for a while, but my wife had said something that triggered me. She and I work on that a lot. It's not anybody else's fault to dance around me trying not to trigger me. It's my fault. Excuse me, not my fault. It's nobody else's responsibility. It is my responsibility to begin to understand what those triggers are and begin to develop tools on what to do when they happen, because they're going to happen all the time. She and I have an excellent relationship, and I could not continue without her support. And I have other supports as well, but she's there, she understands, and she can read me a little bit, and she might ask, what I need, or if there's anything she can do to help. Oftentimes the answer is I don't know and no. If I knew what I needed, there's a 75% chance I would just do it. And anyways, my dad ended up hanging himself February 18th, 2016. And my nephew ended up shooting himself in the head on June 21st, probably about 1 a.m., June 22nd, 2021. He was 20 years old, living in Provo, Utah, going to BYU. And he would call me when he was struggling. We would try to keep those lines of communication open. I can make sense of the fact that I didn't fail him, that it's not on me, but my body does not feel it. My core does not feel it, because it's been driven into me that I'm a problem, that I'm a burden from my upbringing. That thinking is extremely wrong, but the world doesn't understand. When I say the world, I mean a lot of people don't understand that a depressed or anxious person might mentally be able to comprehend, but their body doesn't understand. Their body is having reactions to trauma in their life, and when the reactions get too strong, it's ugly. And it's something that has to be dealt with, and has to be worked on. But like I said, feeling quite a bit of hopelessness at the moment and powerless over the fact that I could actually make it, that I could actually move forward and make it past this, out of this. And it's hard to believe that I might be able to, because of the amount of abuse and issues that I've dealt with in my life. I'm gonna go ahead and conclude, but because the video's getting long and I'm starting to feel lightheaded. I can tell my body's shutting down, and so I'd prefer not to fall asleep on the dock. That would worry my wife quite a bit. And while I don't necessarily carry that burden of not worrying her, because she's gonna worry, but try to do little things to let her know where I am and to help bring her peace of mind that I'm moving forward. Again, I won't lie and say that it could never happen to me, because it certainly could. But I hope others can relate to the fact of the 24/7, 365 fight of not killing yourself. Because that fight never stops. When there's an immense amount of trauma, that fight goes on and on and on, day after day after day. And you never feel like you can get rest from it. I remember about a month ago, my wife asked if I was okay. I told her I'm tired. I'm tired of being in this fight. I'm tired of spending 99% of my energy on not killing myself and using that extra 1% to do the other things in life. And so the other things end up lacking because I exert so much energy on preventing that and keeping safe. So that's what I wanted to record. I hope that someone can relate and understand that this doesn't have to be dark. It's ironic that I'm in a dark background area. It's pitch black outside, 10:48 p.m. But it doesn't have to be dark. It's hard to speak up because you don't know what the response will be. And I've had so many people say, well, just don't do it. Just shut it off. Or just move on. Or how could you even think about that with your family? And it just doesn't work that way. It just doesn't work that way. I'll go more into detail about what I've learned over the years, the 9 years of weekly therapy. But I'm going to call it a night here and hope to record another video soon.